Now, throughout this course, we've been keeping an eye on alternative systems of notation. And now that we've introduced the quantifiers, it's time to look at different ways people have written these quantifiers in different contexts and using different technology. And so in this brief video, we're just going to look at different ways of representing the quantifiers. But it's worth noting that none of these ways represents a different quantifier. It's still the same old all and sum. So we're familiar from this course with the binding of a variable by a quantifier, in this case a universal, and we can write everything as an f as follows. But there's another system of notation that doesn't use a quantifier at all, but just puts x in parentheses, and that is to be taken as a quantified x. I'm not entirely sure where this way of writing the universal quantifier comes from, although I suspect that it has something to do with the idea that whatever x we're putting out here up front, whatever x is bound by our universal quantifier, it doesn't much matter. So it's just any x. And so the sense is that you can just pick an x and it'll be an f, so you don't really need a universal quantifier. I believe that's what it is, but in any case, that's how I remember it. Another way of writing the universal quantifier, which is a good deal less common, is to write it as a very large conjunction sign like this. This notation is motivated by the fact that, as we observed in an earlier video, any universally quantified sentence will be equivalent with a conjunctive string affirming something of every item in the domain. So every x is an f is equivalent with whatever object is named by constant 1 is an f, constant 2 is an f, constant 3 is an f, and so forth for every item in the domain. Hence this great big and that hangs out in front of our variable. Lastly, in Polish notation, you'll see the uppercase Greek letter pi used like this. I'm actually not entirely sure why this uppercase pi is used in Polish notation, given that this universal quantifier is referred to as the quantificator ogólny, and ogólny does not have the pi sound in it anywhere, but there you go. If you know why this is, please tell me in the comments. Moving on to existential quantifiers, we have, of course, our familiar backwards e. Let's just use another predicate just to mix things up. Sometimes this is not flipped around, so you'll just see it written forwards as ex, ax. And usually what's going on is clear, so you'll be able to tell what the logic of it is. I'm not sure why they didn't flip it around. Maybe it cost more to print that way. In like manner to the conjunctive sign for universal quantification, you'll see a big disjunctive sign with a variable like this. And again, this is because any existentially quantified sentence will be equivalent with a disjunctive string covering every object in the domain. Finally, in Polish notation, you'll see a big capital letter sigma. I'm not entirely sure why this sigma gets used either, but it's a little bit closer to the Polish, which is quantificator szczegółowy. Maybe that's why sigma, but in any case, I just remember this by the rough equivalence with the English sum, that is sum, and that's how I remember that the sigma in Polish notation is the existential quantifier, although this is clearly merely mnemonic, that is to say for the sake of remembering things, and I'm pretty sure it's not why the Polish logicians opted for the sigma. And there you go. Those are the other notations for the quantifiers that you're likely to encounter. And again, these still express the same thing. They just express it in a different way. So they're all equivalent. These are merely notational variants.